Growth is the cause that binds us together, the shared endeavour of prosperity. It's why we've made it the #1 test of this government. And I'm determined to do everything in my power to galvanise growth, determined for this country to be the highest growing economy in the G7. That is our most important national mission, because it's the only way to deliver the mandate for change that we've won.
Well, our political correspondent Rob Powell is in Westminster for us. And Rob, this is a big summit for the new government, just marking its 100 days. The Prime Minister would undoubtedly have liked it not to have been overshadowed by the row about DP World over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. That certainly wasn't the best way to run into the summit at a moment where really they needed kind of warm language towards investors. You did not need a row with one of the companies attending. That now seems to have been smoothed over to an extent on Saturday, that £1 billion investment in City Gateway up the Thames back on. DP World's chairman in attendance at the summit as well. And the words that were coming from Sir Keir Starmer this morning were incredibly warm towards business. I think it's an attempt to sort of sketch out a bit of a sales pitch for the UK, quite frankly, but maybe also reassure some of these big business leaders, because, of course, Labour not necessarily the most comfortable bedfellows as a party with the corporate world. So what we've heard from Sir Keir Starmer is sort of reassurance on what they set out last week over workers' rights as well, reassurance as well about the kind of mantra and mindset that they have when it comes to regulation and reform, asking themselves the question, will this help growth every time they look at something? So far, today seems to have been going pretty smoothly. We've had big announcements around more money pouring into various parts of the UK, an announcement around expansion of Stansted Airport, that letter in the Times newspaper this morning from big business bosses saying now is the time to invest in the UK. So Keir Starmer's been sitting down with Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, a little bit earlier, where he has said he was shocked when he heard that Labour was now a pro-growth party, but added that he knows Keir Starmer and knows that he means it, but again was pressing for a kind of light touch approach, if you like, when it comes to regulation, saying that there should be a minister, as he put it, for unregulation, anti-regulation, sorry. The difficulty, I guess, is for Sir Keir Starmer and Labour more broadly, is how do they hold that together, that big kind of love bombing of business, if you like, with some of the other measures that are swirling around below the surface. Yesterday, the Business Secretary gave a pretty clear hint on Sky News that he believes, or that the manifesto pledge that they ran on in July around not putting up national insurance, that was specifically to do with workers' national insurance. Now, to my ears, that clearly opens the door to a potential rise in employer national insurance in the budget. So you are gathering businesses together in London at the same time that one of your cabinet is quite clearly nodding at potentially a tax that would put up the amount that they have to pay in levies when they take people on, when they employ people. So on the one hand, they're trying to strike this very pro-investment message. On the other hand, they are scrambling around trying to find ways to plug a gap as they see it in the public finances.
And Rob, of course, also the 100 days of a new Labour government. It is, you know, something of a confection, isn't it, marking something by sort of the arbitrary number of 100. But it certainly hasn't been the 100 days that the government may well have wanted.
No, it hasn't. I think marking 100 days by jettisoning your chief of staff in Sue Gray, reorganising your Downing Street and fighting off a row about investment on the eve of an investment summit sort of sums up how it has been really for Labour. To an extent, I think a lot will depend now, not so much on the next couple of days, but really on the next few weeks and what happens in the budget. They really can't afford to misfire come the budget. And I think it will be interesting to see what Rachel Reeves says later today when she takes to the stage, because the last week or so has all been about investment. And I think whether Rachel Reeves leans into what she wrote in the Sunday Times yesterday about potentially adjusting, adapting the rules for borrowing to give her more scope essentially for borrowing to invest within the rules they set themselves. That's what people will be watching for. But I think what most people will be interested in and asking about in potentially some interviews she does later is that question of tax. Because yes, language, words and tone matters for business, but arguably what matters more is the bottom line, the numbers, how much they have to pay to do business in the UK.